Hey, good morning, Growtopians. Can't start off a good video without knocking the phone over. Obviously, it's Mike over here in Growtopia, and today we are inside the nursery. For this video in the morning, I'm showing you three things, and then that's going to be a really short video for this morning. So, for starters, obviously, I know you guys have seen it before. I'll take you a little twirl around. But what we have going on over here is we got all the shelves set up, and stuff is slowly starting to come in. Got our first shelf here. That's a short rack. That's obviously going to be storing all of our miscellaneous, our stuff that goes outside, our fertilizers, our clips, and our seeds that we're drying from other stuff. This rack is the way that all these other three racks are going to look exactly like. They have the surge protector on them. They got the fans that are blowing the air down onto the plant trays. Helps with circulation and also helps getting them basically kind of like ready for what it's going to be like outside. Now, they don't blow out a lot of air, but they blow out enough that keeps everybody nice and happy. I might have to adjust these because the way I got them with the Velcro, they're not really sitting the way I need them to sit. They need to sit more like this, so it's still like a little bit of a work in progress with those. Anyway, so I got obviously the temperature gauges and stuff. Now they're in the 70s because I pulled them out of the trays. Everybody's going to be exactly the same carbon copy. And obviously, like I had said that I wanted to do before, was I wanted to pin the wiring against the wall, so it was away from that. We got the Monster over here, which is great, which is going to be able to do both sides. And I had to grab another surge protector. Bought another one of these. And it comes as a 2-pack, so I need to replace one by my computer anyway, so that works out great. Alright, so let's get to the video. So, what we have here today is failure to communicate. Now, let's grab our first seed tray. Show you guys what's going on here. So, as you guys cannot see anything whatsoever, I'm going to grab you instead. I'm actually going to go under the light itself. So, as we see here with today is day 10 of the Tiny Tims. So, as if you look down here with the mater, this has been like this for like the past 2 days and nothing's happened. JP's fertilizer and Jehobe's, I would say if you want to start off your tomatoes, because this is day 10. I'm not going past it. I'll leave the mater to the side, but those guys, we're going to do this final evaluation of which fertilizer is better on starting your tomato plants officially now. Starting off, JP's fertilizer or Jehobe's fertilizer, and I'm talking about, I'll show you the bags here, which one I use. This is the Jehobe's one, the organic vegetable and tomato fertilizer. And this is JP's Secret Stuff fertilizer. Okay. Both are 4-pound bags. Whichever one you want to go for works great. I like JP's and I like the Jehobe. I was really surprised how both JP's and Jehobe's fertilizer both came up. The tomatoes both came up literally the same freaking day. It was literally only like a few days later. So the first ones to come up were these two. Now we go down the line to the no fertilizer and the eggshell. So the no fertilizer came up let's see, today's day 10. So this was about like day 8 or day 9 this showed up. And these, I started seeing them slowly pop out of the ground last night, and look how high they are. And that's just the eggshell. So, if you want your stuff to come up right away, as quick as possible to try to get more growing a lot faster, definitely use Jehobe's or JP's fertilizer. They will pop a lot quicker, and you will know if those seeds are good or not. See, that's the whole biggest thing behind this. The only thing that I could say is that if the reason why the mater didn't run is because on the back of the container it says you need 3 pellets per plant. So I put 3 pellets in there. Now I could have over fertilized it because on Mater Magic, which is this guy here, if you look at the back of it, it talks about what's inside. Now I'm going to read it off to you. But it says total nitrogen is 8%. Potassium is 5%, phosphorus is 5, calcium is 4, sulfur is 1. So it has the highest amount of nitrogen out of all of them. It is a level 8%. JP's total nitrogen is 3%, and Johobe's total nitrogen is 2%. So the only thing between Johobe's and JP's, they're Johobe's 2%, JP is 3, but the Mater Magic is 8. Now, could that have been just way too much nitrogen and the plant just didn't take off? Or could it have been a bad seed? It started, but it just kind of like did nothing. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one for shits and giggles, but knowing what's going on with it, it's just not worth me trying it again. So if you want to do fertilizer, Johobe's and JP, definitely you'll have fast, quick results. If you want to do non-fertilizer, which is 90% of all my plants that were planted before I revamped this whole growing system, was no fertilizer. And on day 10, day 9 and 10, they're coming up out of the ground with no fertilizer at all. Now, I'm talking about the granule fertilizer. The only other fertilizer that all of them got was the banana orange peel blend. That's it. And that's what everyone gets as well. And the eggshell powder on day 10, we got some results here. And that's mainly just calcium that's in it. So, does it matter what you're putting in there? If you want to save your money, I would say go for the no fertilizer and the eggshell. The only thing that's funny, though, is if I actually do the order of what popped up out of the ground first, it was JP and Johobe's was like neck and neck. Then came the no fertilizer, and now is coming the eggshell. So the eggshell is basically day 10 and day 9, and the no fertilizer started around day 7 and day 8. So the no fertilizer was only like a couple days behind it, but the JP and the Johobe's, not only did they come up, but they came up fast, and they came up tall. So, and the okra down here is off of JP's fertilizer. So that would be that. Now, I'm going to throw those guys back down there. I'm going to stick them back in to the tray. And if anybody was wondering, because yes, they are under grow lights and they are in front of a open window as well. Not that that has ever really made a difference or not, but being they are in front of an open window, I did also every day rotate the planter around so that the no fertilizer was by the window and the mater was by the window. So every day I rotated the planter, and I do the nail test where I stick my finger into it. So let me grab like the lettuce here, the lettuce bag. So I just take my finger and I just kind of go around on the side, and tip of my finger is brown. And because you could take it out, you could touch the bottom of the bag as well, and the bag is damp. So that's what I like about using the bags versus filling them with soil, because I can actually take it out and I actually don't have to worry about spilling soil every place. I just pull the bag out, and if it's nice and damp, that's good. I don't have to water it. And I'll check this, especially when I'm home, like on a Saturday and Sunday, I'll check it in the morning, midday, and afternoon. When I'm working, I'll check them in the morning when I wake up, and then I'll check them after I come home from work. And I'll see and I'll just grab random bags. Plus, you could also tell by the surface. So the peat moss bags, when they're wet, it's like a dark brown. When they're dry, it turns into a light brown. So you also have visual and you have physical too. So it's always things you want to keep an eye on. Don't think just stick it inside your nursery, wherever you have it, that it's gonna be good the whole time. The only time it's gonna stay moist the longest is when you put the humidity dome on, because the water will evaporate, hit the dome, and then drip back down. Even when you have the vents open, it still retains most of the water. And with the humidity dome, the vents just help vent out like some of the moisture, because if you have domes on for too long, and I've already experienced this, you will grow mold in there within 3-4 days, especially when it's getting into the summer and it's going to be more humid. This room has zero ventilation in it. The windows are sealed shut, and to get to the window, there's stands in the way, so there's no ventilation. And this room is in a weird corner of my house, so this room's always warm, even with the door open. So unfortunately, when you put the dome on, you got to be careful because it will just lock in all that humidity, and then it just turns into a nightmare. So let me just throw my temperature gauge back into the one bag I use. You always want one bag to use, and you always want to make sure that you put the probe to the side so you're not accidentally hitting the plant that's in there. And you want to make sure that when you make the hole from the get-go that you constantly go back into that hole and you use that one bag. And I always like the bag that's in the center. Anyway, on to our next ones here that we've been growing along is we have the eggplant black beauties, and we got the corn golden Bathum. And it's literally, we plan on 8/8, so it's, what is it, 1 day right now? Yeah. And look how good the corn's coming up. I got one. Trying to see if you guys can see. It's hard when the phone's facing the other way. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 5 corn plants so far starting to come up. And what I'm going to do with those guys is obviously they're going to be clustered together. And they're going to stay in here until they get a little bit taller before I transplant them outside. And I contacted an arborer yesterday that is close to where I live, and he said they might be able to drop off a load of wood chips yesterday or today. So they didn't come yesterday, and this is really getting annoying after a while trying to hunt down these wood chips because I really want them. 1, for starters, they look nice. 2, they keep the weeds away. And as they break down, they go into the soil, which is great. That means that keeps that whole area, even though the plants are in beds, if those roots kind of migrate out, then they're going to migrate out into an area where there's more nutrients, and they're going to take more nutrients out of the soil. And like I said, it makes it look nice, and it's free. We're doing this for a couple reasons. We're doing this for 1, it's enjoyable. 2, you get healthy food, and the food from the garden tastes way better. And I know a lot of people say that nobody really crosses the line for why it tastes better. It tastes better because it's fresh. Okay? So if you were to, let's say this was a tomato, and you pulled this off your plant, you're like, wow, this is big. Take a bite out of it. Wow, it's juicy as hell. Then you get a tomato you bought from the supermarket. No supermarkets out there have a garden in the backyard of their supermarket or on the roof of it, and they're picking fresh and they're selling it. That'd be cool for a supermarket. But no supermarket can do that with the demand of what people need. They would have to have like a massive farm and do it. That's why farm stands and homegrown stuff taste the same, because farm stands, a lot of farm stands from a farm, because I deal with actually a lot of farms in the area, it's fresh. They picked it either that day or the day before. It's fresh. And people will flock there and they buy it all and they keep picking it. And they keep, it's just one big nice fucking awesome circle. So when you get it from a supermarket, a lot of the stuff coming from a lot of different supermarkets aren't locally grown. They're grown in Mexico. So if you live in New York and you own a globe, Mexico is not around the corner at all. California tomatoes you can buy in New York. California is not around the corner. It's not like they take the tomato, pull it off the vine, throw it in a bag and send it, FedEx Air to your supermarket. It goes to a place, goes to a processing plant, and it sits there for maybe a week or 2. Then it gets on a truck, or it gets in a plane. I'm not sure how they ship it. I imagine by truck. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen an airplane full of tomatoes. I've seen an airplane with snakes on it, but not tomatoes. By the time it gets from the field to your house, it might be a week or 2 or 3 or 4, or it might be longer. A lot of times, different farms far away will pick a tomato when it's green. So by the time it gets to the supermarket, it's good to go. That's also another reason why, if you have stuff you picked out of your garden and you put it on your table, it'll last for 2 or 3 weeks. And you're like, how is it lasting so long? Because you're going through the same time period as it comes from the supermarket. Why does it taste different than the supermarket? Well, other than A, the freshness, and it's not been sitting around for a while, but also what you're putting in there. You're not putting chemicals in there. You're not spraying it with pesticides. You're not putting a film on the tomatoes. Not even just tomatoes, but anything in general. You notice like apples. The skin of an apple's different. Well, they coat them in like a wax to keep the bugs off of them. And then by the time it gets to you, it's still's got that wax on it. But when you're growing your own apples, you're not putting the wax on them to keep the bugs off them. You let them just naturally grow because you want that naturalness, and you don't want to spend a lot of money to wax your tomatoes, apples. Jesus. So you take that apple off the tree with a couple bites and little worm bites out of it into it, and you're like, that tastes good. You know, my lips aren't waxy and stuff. Yes, because you didn't wax your apple. They wax it to keep the bugs off. Because ironically, you at home don't mind biting into an apple with a hole in it, but in the supermarket, you'd be like, I ain't paying $3 for a holy apple. So I know I can sound eccentric in my videos, but it is the truth on why people are just strange in that kind of way. And I know a lot of people talk about taking your corn and planting them outside, but when I did my corn this past year, I started them off in bags inside my nursery. And that works the best for me. So obviously I'm going to stick with that because that works great for me. It may not work for everybody, but that's how I did my peaches and cream apples. Jesus. That's how I did my peaches and cream corn. Was I started them off in bags. And when I pulled them out of the ground, below where the stem was, the bag was still there, but it was a massive block of soil that was full of roots. So a lot of people talk about, well, if you don't sow them in the ground, then they're going to fall over. That's not true. That's not true at all. If you put them in the bags, and then when you go to plant them, you almost do the same thing you do with the tomatoes. You plant them a little deeper. So if the bag is here, right, and you got the stem in between it, right? So here's my knuckle. As you can see, my finger bends. This is my knuckle. I'm doing my middle finger. It's a little bit better. There we go. So my knuckle is here. So I'm going to make sure that when I put the bag in the ground, I'm going to put the bag so that the soil is just above, like, basically like half an inch or an inch. You kind of basically, and that's what I did, and it worked great for me. The only problem was I didn't put them in clusters and rows. Otherwise, I would have had a massive harvest. So that was my stupidity of not putting them together. But the way I planted them worked out great. They had a massive anchor bowl on the bottom. So you have the bag, and then you have from it coming out of the bag to the top of the plant. And what I did is I did half of that, and I buried it down to that, which worked out great. It didn't kill the plant, didn't cause root rot. And like I said, the root ball on them was the size of a basketball. It was crazy when I pulled them out of the ground. So I'm pulling and pulling, and all of a sudden this whole ground starts coming out around me. I'm like, the hell? And it was this high. So you had this massive freaking root ball system. It was this big. As I said, it was like almost the size of my head. Nuts. But that's why when the wind would blow, my corn just like that. The reason why people's corns fall over, I think, is because they're not planting them deep enough. So if you start them off in a bag and you plant them at the right depth, and then you plant them even deeper, because look, here's the bag of corn, okay? So this is how big the bag is. So you see how the corn's sticking out of it. So this is how big the bag is. So the corn is somewhere like down here in the bag. So all I do is I pop the bottom out, which you don't have to because this bag tears easy and the roots obviously go through it. So when I go to plant this bag, even though the corn's planted to here, and this will be up to, let's say, about here, I'll plant it this deep down. So this is almost double the height of the bag is going into the ground. And that's why they're stable. Well, anyway, guys, there was a lot of miscellaneous stuff at one time. We also ordered strawberry plants from, not Burpees, something else, one of the other organic plant companies. We do have the strawberry seeds going in a bag. They're sowed, they're not doing much. We also have, what the hell is that? It's a backwards tag. We have the strawberry seeds that are in the bags. No germination has come out yet. We have strawberry seeds in the fridge, or I think it's fridge or freezer. They got to sit up there for like 8 weeks, some shit like that. Then those will eventually get planted. There'll be a video on those. And then we got the strawberry plants coming. And it was actually a pretty good deal. It was 4 plants for $22 on Amazon. So when those come in, I will drop the link in the description below. You can see them. I looked at people's reviews and photos of them, and it was all successful stuff, so that's why I went for them. And I've actually bought from that company before, just not through Amazon, which is really funny. But it's not through Amazon, it's the Amazon store for that company. case but nobody knows how Amazon really works. Sometimes people don't. Amazon's not always selling the stuff in their warehouse. It's literally a storefront. So Amazon is, the middleman. Great freaking idea for a company. I wish I came up with that years ago. That thing started around the time when I was young. I'm older than Amazon. I think a lot of people are that are watching my video. That's funny. Oh man, I just dated myself. But whatever. So everything looks like it's going to be growing pretty good, and that's the best thing to do with your corn. I'll be waiting a couple more days before I plant the corn in the ground. It's got to get a little bit higher, but it's literally been one day, and they're like that, and they've been treated with JP's fertilizer as well. Why I did JP, not Jehovah's, was just because, and I did the fertilizer with JP on them just for shits and giggles, because of the nitrogen that's in it. So JP's 2%. JP's 3%, Jehovah's 2%. So, but anyway, guys, that's it for today's video. A little longer than I originally expected, but sometimes I get going and I got so much I want to get across. So, anyway, I hope everybody have a wonderful Sunday. Get out there and grow. Get out there and plant stuff, and do something like this. Make a nursery inside of a spare room of your house you're not using, or in the garage. Put it somewhere that is going to be warm in the summer and a little warm in the winter. And this room stays a little warm. This room stays a little warm in the winter. And I'm talking about it stays usually around like the 50s and the 40s. So that works out great. Plus with the heating mats and the domes and the lights, I can control all the aspects of stuff. And I got a lot of room in here so I can bring in my basil plants. And I can even grow stuff year round in here. So as soon as winter comes, and usually I'd be like kind of doing nothing at all because I was working on cars or I'm working on the yard, and I can't really do anything in the winter, I can come in here and I can start getting all my different stuff going. I can get my tomato plants, my corn plants. I can get my basil plants growing. I can get my bodyguard plants, my marigolds, my borage. Basil is also like another bodyguard plant for everything that's out there. So I can get that growing in here, and then once it's like basically almost ready to go outside, and I could either leave it inside on a shelf that's controlled, or I can put it in my greenhouse, whichever one is sitting at the right soil temp and the temperature in there, because they got a temperature gauge inside the greenhouses. And one's warmer than the other. So if I'm seeing outside, I could start moving stuff out of the nursery, put it in the greenhouse for a week or two, and then once it's like, okay, the outside air and the temp and the ground soil is all in the right conditions for like a couple weeks, then I can take everything from the greenhouse and put it out into the yard, because that's the best way to really do it for me, is I go from the nursery to the greenhouse to the yard, and it works out the best because I got tomato plants that are 4 feet tall, and that's exactly how we did them, and we ran them without fertilizer until almost like until they hit about 3 feet, and then we realized like, they need fertilizer and they need to go outside. Now they're 4 feet, one's 5 feet tall, so it's good shit. It's good shit, everybody. All right, everybody enjoy the rest of their Sunday. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Get out there, grow something. Comment below if you have any questions. You want to know what stuff is, the cost of things, let me know, and I have no problem telling people. Later.